One of the most frequent questions that we're getting almost on a daily basis from clients is buying a home still a good investment in this higher interest rate environment? This is part of a presentation that I gave to a local Rotary Club when I provided a real estate update here a couple of months ago, and so I wanted to take you through the economics of it and the statistics of it. This is median home price and how it's trended since 2021, and when we look at home price, it has consistently risen during this time with a little valley here, and this was primarily due to interest rates rising significantly in 2022. So let's just take a worst case scenario situation. Let's say that you were the buyer who happened to purchase the home in October of 2022. Now understand, the peak rate for mortgages in 2022 was 7.08%. That was more than 4 percentage points higher than where we started the year, right around 3%. And that's a huge increase in interest rates, right? And made a big difference in their mortgage payment. But let's just say that they purchased a median home in King County for $689,000 in October of 22 with a 7.08% mortgage. And it would look something like this, a nice 1,700 3-bed, 2-bath, tri-level in a good neighborhood, right? And they would have a mortgage of $4,255, right? Now, if they were to go to rent that property, they'd probably pay about $3,200 per month to rent that property in 2022. Making the premium for owning a home about $1,000 a month more. It would add about $12,000 a year to their housing cost, right? And that's a kind of a tough pill to swallow for many people. It certainly puts a pressure on affordability. But let's look at where median home price went over those next 2 years, right? So over a 2-year period between October and October of 2022 and November of 2024, you're looking at a rise of 8% in just 2 years, and that's for median home value. We saw a lot of folks in neighborhoods see an appreciation rate over those 2 years closer to 15 to 20%, right? But this is just the median home value of that time, and so we'll be conservative with our estimation. Now, one of the strategies that we look at here is just because you have a 7% mortgage when you start doesn't mean you have to have a 7% mortgage for the life of ownership of your home. If you track mortgages, and generally what you find is about the time that they reduce by about 1%, sometimes it's about 0.75%, but let's just say 1%. If you watch for the market, and as soon as the market gets close to a 1% reduction, you refinance. Well, in this case, in September of 2024, they could have refinanced at a 6.08%, 1 full percentage point lower, and their housing payment would be $3,891, right? That's definitely a nice savings. You're saving close to $400 a month there, right? That's definitely appreciated. Now, the important thing to recognize is that during this time, rents easily increased by 15%, right? There's some metrics that would actually say it was 15% per year over those 2 years, but we're just going to go again conservative on this and just say that during that 2 years, equivalent rent would have increased to $3,700, up 15% from where it was in October of 2022. Right? So that brought the distance, that premium for home ownership, down to $154 a month, right? Now, of course, there is a big gain in terms of equity. And so when you look at renter equity over those 2 years, the renters had zero equity in that. They had paid all the money that they had paid, and they really didn't have anything to show for it other than the flexibility to move on anytime that they wanted to when the lease was up, right? Whereas the owner equity in their home was more than $56,000 during that time. Now, for many people that advocate that renting is better than owning, they always talk about the cash-on-cash return. Where's the return on the money that I have invested in this, right? And what we generally find is that they don't talk about cash-on-cash return. They talk about appreciation. Appreciation being 8% over 2 years, which averages out to like 4% per year, right? Well, when you look at the actual cash-on-cash return and you focus on the $138,000 that somebody had to put for a down payment to have the mortgage that they did, and the extra housing payment, the extra HP there is, I'm focusing on, well, the fact that there was a premium on the owning a home, and that added up to about $25,000 over those 2 years. Well, if you take all of that and you compare it against the amount of just equity that they've gained in those 2 years, you got about a 34% cash on cash return, which is very great compared to many investments that you would otherwise make out there. Not as good as some years in the market, but certainly better than most, and you have the benefit of being able to live in the property during that time. So this is one of those things when we look at, is buying a home still a good investment? We would say even in the worst case scenario over the last 2 years, yes. For that person who bought at a peak mortgage rate back in 2022 and had the regret of not getting the 3% mortgage and had to settle for the 7% mortgage, it was still a good investment. And as they look over the next few years, it's only going to get better and better and better as we look at mortgage rates most likely coming down to be able to lower their overall housing payment per month, definitely below where rent is going to be over the next 5 years. And they're going to continue to see that appreciation grow and having been able to get into a home that they may not otherwise be able to afford 3 or 4 years from now. So there's our argument using numbers to show you that buying a home is still a good investment so long as you can afford the housing payment right at today's mortgage rates, and you have some down payment and some capability to purchase in this market. If you do, or if you need to get prepared for that, let us know. We would love to answer your questions and help you get prepared to take advantage of today's opportunities, knowing that today's opportunities are going to look very good for those who might look on them 3 or 4 years from now. Thanks for watching. We appreciate the time and your questions.